I'm your host, John Myers, live from Stillwater, Oklahoma. We have got a great show tonight. It's John Myers. Hey, everybody. Gotta have my notes. It's John Myers from the Kicker UnMasked studios. Gotta have my notes. Alternator. Hey, everybody. We have fun. Hey, everybody. Hit like and subscribe. Right here, right now. It's John Myers. We like to give stuff away. Alternator. Post some more pictures. We got to thank Steve and Becky live from Stillwater, Oklahoma. Don't forget Texas Roadhouse right here, right now. Hey, everybody. Don't forget right here, right now. We have got a great show tonight. Hey, everybody. Had a great dinner tonight. It's John Myers. Right here, right now. Had a great dinner tonight. So, hey, everybody. So, housekeeping. Had a great dinner tonight. So, alternator. Housekeeping. Housekeeping. So, Tuesday night. Housekeeping. From the Kicker UnMasked studios. Housekeeping. Right here, right now. Hey, everybody. So, it's John Myers. Hey, everybody. It's John Myers from the Kicker UnMasked studios. Hey, everybody. From the Kicker UnMasked studios. It's John Myers. Right here, right now. We have got a great show tonight. Hey, everybody. We have got a great show tonight. It's John Myers. Hey, everybody. Right here. Hey, everybody, it is Tuesday night, and we're here for, what are we here for again? Oh, yeah, Unmasked Live, right here in Stillwater, Oklahoma, live from the Kicker World headquarters. We had a great event over the weekend. I got to hang out with Bill and Jeremy and Steven. We went to the Sand Sports Show in Costa Mesa, California, and it really wasn't sunny California. It was kind of overcast and a little misty on Sunday, but, it wasn't a bad show. Anything and everything off-road was represented that show. It was a great time. We had a great turnout, and I'd like to do that show again. It was a lot of fun. But we've got a great crew on hand. We got the usual list of misfits. We got Stephen Bambro behind the camera back here. Of course, way back behind me in the back of the room back here, in the back of the auditorium. We got Bill down there answering questions and generally making some obnoxious comments on the computer. JW's running the console, and flagging everyone down is going to be Ernie over there on the far left. So we've got a great crew. So guys, sit back, relax. We're going to have a good time tonight. If this is your first time joining us on Unmasked, just remember, we like to give stuff away. So we do every time we're on air. We've got a giveaway. So what you need to do is you need to go on kicker.com/UMweekly, where you can register to win. Tonight's grand prize winner is going to get the Bluetooth, not Bluetooth, but yeah, it is a Bluetooth speaker. Boy, I'm losing my mind tonight. It is a wireless Bluetooth speaker, the Bullfrog BF100. You're going to get the Unmasked t-shirt and the Unmasked koozie. The second place winner is going to get the EB400 wireless earbuds, which are also Bluetooth, by the way, in case you forgot, and if you didn't remember that from the last time we did the show, and the time before, and the time before, and the time before. We're also going to give you that t-shirt and the koozie, and the second runner-up, or the third place winner, is going to get the Kicker tumbler, the t-shirt, and the koozie. So make sure you guys register for those. We're going to shut those registrations down at 8 o'clock, which is about 26 minutes from now. So when we come back from commercial break, we're going to have a special guest, and we're going to talk to you about designing a system from the ground up and all the things you need to consider. It's not just like, hey, I'm going to put a stereo in my car, go out and buy a set of speakers and throw them in. There's a lot of things you need to consider, especially if you're going to help someone out doing it. There's a lot of interesting things we got to talk about, a lot of decision making. So we're going to talk about what gets involved in that. And then after we get done with our special guest, we're going to bring out yet another special guest, which I'm sure you guys will recognize who that is when he comes out here. This is going to be the guy that's going to tell us all about the hands-on end of it, the actual installation, what to think of, and we're going to talk about some ideas and different directions to go. So make sure you tune in right after the commercial break. We are going to come back with just a couple more announcements, and then we're going to go right to our first guest. So see you in a minute.
It's been a long road since the original Kicker christened that first pickup truck. It kicked off a car audio renaissance, and upgrading your music in a vehicle was a requirement. America's music machines became living loud over your passion, your emotion, your existence. Outdoors or on the open road, your sound is Kicker.
Music is my passion, my livelihood, and it's in my DNA. My pals at Kicker Marine Audio gave me a chance to take the music, what I love and listen to, at home, on stage, and in the car, onto the water. Hi, this is Jason Bonham, and I want to say a big thank you to my friends at Kicker Audio for inspiring the songs and the stories behind the music that inspires America. Go overboard! This is your time.
Something about your hands on the wheel, got a sexy touch. It's enough to make me and my Chevy blush. So long, take it all off of that highway. Turn me on, I'll let you drive, babe. You can take it fast as you want to. Girl, little dirty looks damn good on you. Start me up, Stones on the radio. Girl, I love it when you let go. Don't waste your way in the wrong way. Get off on some 4x4 play.
Should I look at you?
And we're back. Guys, if you like what you see, make sure you hit like and subscribe. If you guys have any suggestions for, feature topics, people you want to see on the show, things you want us to go over, please mention it in the comments, or you can always send us emails at support@kicker.com. As always, we got a group of guys back here that do a great job of answering those questions. So if you got questions that we just don't get answered tonight, or if you think about it, after the show's over, go ahead and send us that email. But we have got our special guest. Abigail, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So this is her first big camera appearance. You're going to look for her on the big screen sooner or later after you hit that big movie deal. So anyway, what do you do for the company? Tell everybody out there what your position is here.
Yeah, so I'm a graphic designer here at Kicker, so I help with all sorts of design needs that we have over here.
What kind of design needs?
I make flyers, I do promo stuff, Photoshop. Love that Photoshop.
So she gets to do all the cool stuff behind the scenes, all the stuff you get to see when we're out on the market. But Abigail came to us and said, hey, I work for this awesome audio company, but I don't have any music in my car. And you like music, don't you?
Of course.
What kind of music do you like? Because that is actually a very important question.
I love rap, reggae, and a lot of classic rock.
Awesome. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some notes because we're going to go over basically everything we need to know about designing a system for you in your car. So we're going to ask you a lot of questions, probably not personal questions, but we're going to ask you a lot of questions. And then we're going to get our next special guest out, and he and I are going to go over exactly what we're probably going to end up doing to your car. So once you get off the screen here, and once I get all my questions answered, it's out of your hands. You don't have any control over it whatsoever. So you're stuck with what we give you. No, not actually. There's always that two-way communication. So we're going to go through here and just ask some of the basic questions. And the hardest question you always have to ask always involves money, because that's always the big thing, what's your budget? Zero. I don't want to spend any money whatsoever. It's okay, well, we're done then because we don't need to go any farther. But do you have a rough idea, what you're looking to spend on this system,
Yeah, I'm thinking I'd like to spend probably about $1,500.
All right, so about $1,500, give or take. And we don't have to use all that. We just need kind of a basis. The reason I say that is I've had people call up and say, hey, I'm looking for, a system for my vehicle. And we go through, we get the vehicle, we ask all the questions, we get the whole thing designed. You want two 10-inch subs, we want a 1,000-watt amp on the subs, want a 4-channel for the front, want a set of components, we're looking for a nice monitor. And then they come back with, yep, I got a $300 budget. So that's pretty much throw that whole thing, out the window. It's not going to work. So that's why we generally got to ask. And I think, with what we do, I think, $1,500 is a very fair budget. And just remember, you get to a certain point, in, audio, and you just keep throwing more money at it and you get diminishing return. I mean, you go up that plateau, you keep getting more and more gain, but at a certain point, it's going to start to level off, where you can literally double your money and still not get that big of an increase. But anywhere from $1,000, about $2,500, I generally say you can get one heck of a good system. And even if you only got $500 or $600, we can still make the car sound better. And that's kind of one of the things we specialize with here. So we're going to go ahead and take this down. You said about $1,500 for a budget. I'll make sure I can read my writing later, because I know the next guy's not going to be able to read it because it's going to be in front of me. So, and the type of music you listened to, you said was rap,
reggae, and classic rock.
Classic rock. You caught me there. I'm a classic rock person myself. I can really listen about anything but opera. If it sounds good, it sounds good. So, what do you use normally to play your music? What type of, do you use CD? Do you use the phone? Do you use a tape? Do you use an 8-track? Do you know what an 8-track is?
I have not used an 8-track in my car.
I'm going to have to show you, the real world.
Yeah, I usually use Bluetooth on my phone.
Okay. And what server to use when you're playing Bluetooth? Do you use Pandora? Do you use?
I use Spotify.
Spotify. And the reason I ask those questions is because different services have different outputs. So if we're going to tune your system, what we used to do is we used to tune audio systems with an iASCA CD. It was, a very highly produced, scientific, put together CD. The problem is we tune the system with the iASCA CD. Are you going to listen to an iASCA CD?
I don't know what that is.
Yep, so probably not. So that's why you always want to make sure that, we pick the device that you're going to use, and you do this through your phone. What type of phone is it?
I have an iPhone 13.
iPhone. You're one of those iPhone users. So that's all right. I'm an Android guy, but it doesn't matter if the phone works. But none of them work anymore, do they? They do everything but make phone calls. Do not understand that. You can... Yeah, oh, shut up, Ernie. Ernie's back there. You don't have an iPhone. It's like,
yeah.
Well, let's see if your iPhone does that too. All right. So we got the type of music. We know what your phone is going to use. And believe it or not, the iPhones and the Androids have different output levels too. So it's very important to make sure we know what type of source you're going to use. How loud do you listen to your music?
Pretty loud.
Enough that it's rattling the windows, or you feel some vibrations, and can you talk over it?
My mirrors are shaky.
So that's why we hired you. Yep. So you listen to it loud. How loud do you listen to it? Loud is the word. Now, this is going to be your everyday vehicle. This is not just a specific, stereo-only show vehicle. So you probably want to make sure that, we don't sacrifice the usability of the vehicle. We don't want to take out your back seat and build a wall. Now, we can do that. And probably not going to get that done for $1,500. But there's always that option. And if you really want an over-the-top system, I think we have just the guys in back that can do that. So that's not going to be an issue whatsoever. And how much bass do you like? I know people have different levels of bass. You said you like loud music.
I like bass.
You like your hair moving?
Yeah.
All right. See, I don't have that option. So she likes a lot of bass. How much bass do you like? We're going to put a lot. All right. Now, we got to ask some questions about how to set up the system, and the other thing we need to know is what type of sound you like. So, are you looking for something that's got a very smooth, clean, natural sound? Do you like something that's a little brighter, got a little more sizzle on the top end? Do you like a lot of mid-range, a lot of the vocals, or do you, music is very personal. There is no right or wrong. So, if you had to categorize what sounds in the music you like best, what would it be?
Yeah, so I definitely enjoy a lot of bass. I like to hear that. I think that's the most important thing. But after that, I really want to be able to hear the different instruments and the different components that kind of put it together. So I want each thing to kind of be crisp.
So I like it. All right, so crisp,
yeah,
clean, and accurate. Some people don't care. They just want all the bass in the world. They don't care if they can hear the vocals or not. And that's okay too, because what do we sell? Woofers and amplifiers. We sell a lot of those. So, all right. So Next question I'm going to ask is, how are you going to use this? I mean, are you looking for a system that's going to duplicate an actual concert, or are you looking for something that's going to, you just got great sound that sounds pretty loud and has good bass? The reason I ask, because if you're looking for more of an actual concert and what we call imaging and staging, we might need to add a center channel, we might need a DSP processor, but of course that's going to add expense. We'll have to kind of weigh all this with the budgets. So there's capabilities to everything in just about every budget. So are you really looking for, when you shut your eyes, you can pick out every instrument across the dash, or you just want it loud and pounding?
I would like to be able to hear every instrument.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. She wants sound quality as well. We can probably do that too. So, next question we're going to ask when it comes to that, how important are rear speakers?
Rear speakers. So like on my passenger door?
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of people sit back there.
There you go.
Yeah, so probably not as important.
Okay, which is good, because then we don't have to divert any of the budget to the back of the vehicle. We can always just upgrade the speakers and maybe not put an amplifier on them. We'll just kind of see how the budget plays out. So that's going to be a telltale sign. But like we always say, the speakers in the back primarily are just for the people in the back. So if you said people very rarely sit in the back of your car, it's definitely not going to be as important. But there are some people that like the same sound all the way around them in a car. They like the same sound up front and behind them, which isn't really set up for a sound quality system, because you've been to a concert before, haven't you?
Quite a few.
Where are your performers?
In the front.
Are they in front of you and behind you? Probably not, no. So that's why the rear speakers are not as important to a good sound quality, more of an accurate system. But you still have a little bit of rear fill, and once again, we can, depending on how we tune the system and what we do with, amplifiers and speakers, we can definitely make that work. So rear speakers, not so important. All right, so next question I'm gonna ask, which we need to ask, I already know, so what kind of car are we dealing with?
We are dealing with a 2019 Toyota Camry.
All right, Camry what?
Hybrid.
So that's something else we need to take in consideration, is what type of charging system the vehicle has. Is it, an all-electric vehicle that only has batteries? Is it only gas? Does it have a, tiny, tiny little alternator, or does it have, a big, massive, like a work truck that's got a 300 amp alternator? So these are all questions we have to know, because if you're looking to put, 6,000-7,000 watt system in this car, the stock electrical system's probably not going to cut it. And then, of course, we're going to have to add batteries, and it just gets more expensive as we go there. But I think we're going to be all right with the vehicle you have for kind of what we're talking about. Another odd question that I always have to ask when designing systems is, how long do you plan on keeping this car?
I don't want to buy a car until they got flying cars.
Okay, so a couple, 3 weeks? Well, they're working. You've seen those drones that you can fly around in.
I don't want to fly in a drone. But I plan on, it's a Toyota, so I feel like it'll probably go, and I hope 20 years, you know?
Yeah. With proper maintenance, taking care of your vehicle, it's entirely possible, and Toyotas are going to last. The reason we like to know that is because when we start talking about systems that have a lot of customization in them. You're going to pay a lot of money to have something customized, and if you're one of those people that gets rid of the vehicle, every 6 months or every year or 2 years and trades it off and gets a new one, you probably don't want to spend a whole lot of money doing anything really custom and really specific to that vehicle, because you don't get that back, and you can't take that back out of the vehicle and put it in the next one. So that's another reason why we kind of ask, how long are you going to have your vehicle? Subwoofers. You say you like bass. Mm-hmm. Now, the fact you like a lot of bass is going to limit our location. If you were the type of person that wasn't looking for, absolutely, gut-wrenching, earth-shattering bass, we could get by putting, one of our little hideaways, and this is a little powered 8 or 10 inch subwoofer that slides under the seat. They do a really good job of making up some of that bottom end, but they're probably not going to give you the bass response when you really get wailing on it. They've got a very specific application. So we're going to have to put your subwoofers in your trunk, just so you know. Now, you use your trunk, don't you?
Yes, I like to golf.
There you go. So that's another thing. We need to know what goes in the trunk if we're going to put speakers in with it, and how much space we have to work with. So you need room for your golf clubs. Anything else?
Probably some luggage.
All right. Got a back seat for that.
I do. I'm filling it all the way up.
So, all good question to ask, because if that's the case, if you need room for a little bit of luggage and golf clubs, probably don't want to put a pair of 15s back there, because that's going to pretty much eliminate all of your trunk space. So I'm thinking maybe, a couple 10s or 12s, vented box, get you some more output. And then got to figure out where to put amplifiers, because we got to power the amplifiers. Now we've got two options, and this will probably be with me and our next guest, but we have to decide, depending on what amplifiers we end up going with, will they fit under the front seats? Are we going to put them in the trunk? Are we going to put them on the enclosure? Are we going to mount them to a side panel? Are we going to put them in the spare tire well? So we have a lot of options there, but that's nothing you really need to worry about. We just need to figure out, what amplifiers and what speakers are going to fit in your budget. So next question we have, if we need to modify your vehicle. Then I'm not talking, putting, drag slicks on the back and a hood scoop on it. That's not what you do to Toyotas. But if we decide we do a set of components, we want to put, say, a set of tweeters in the pillars, or we want to add, bigger speakers to the door, how important is it that we keep your vehicle 100% original?
Not entirely important.
Okay, then that's good to know. Some vehicles out there, people think, hey, this is going to be a collector vehicle. You can't put a single hole in the vehicle. And that actually changes how we design the system and what we do. But in a vehicle like yours, no offense, there's a lot of Toyotas out there. It's probably not going to be a collector's item. But if we do any modifications, if we have to cut anything, if it's going to be anything that's going to be visible, we will talk to you first. Say, hey, do you mind if we cut this? Or do you mind if we put this speaker here? There wasn't one before. And specifically, I'm talking about if we decide we want to add a set of tweeters, which are the little small speakers, we want to put those in the pillars right by where your mirrors are. There's a little plastic panel up there. We'd have to cut holes in to mount the speakers, or drill a hole to mount, say, one of our little pods. So that's why we like to ask, is that okay? And if that's not okay, we have to figure out someplace else to do it. Now, I do know in your car, it's got a fairly big grill in the dash for that small speaker. It's got a 3.5-inch speaker location. It's got a 2 3/4-inch speaker in it, but it's a 3.5-inch speaker location. We might be able to put the tweeter off to the side, but actually cut a hole in that panel. So we're not actually putting it in the door. We're actually putting it next to the other speaker, which sonically would be ideal. So there's different things we got to talk about, and the other nice thing is, those two panels, if you decided that, you wanted to pull the speakers out, that's a pretty easy panel to find. You wouldn't have to, it's not like replacing an entire door panel or a fender or a hood or a back seat. So we could put that car back to original. Something else you have to think about it. If it's a leased vehicle, if it's a, purchased vehicle, did you lease it or did you buy it?
I bought it.
Okay, so you own it. Another thing to consider, lease vehicles, they do not like modifications. When you go to turn your lease vehicle back in, if you got holes cut in it, you got too many miles on it, you got dents, scratches, they are going to basically charge you back for that. So since you own the vehicle, we can pretty much cut at will. So I'm looking forward.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it shouldn't be that much going on. Your car is actually very well set up to do a really nice audio system very reasonably without doing a whole lot of extra work. So next question I have to ask is, in your listening to music, when do you primarily listen to music? Do you listen to me just driving down the road, or you go to the park, sit there and open the windows and doors and listen to it for a couple hours? What is your primary use of the audio system going to be?
I usually listen to it while I'm driving down the road.
Yep, like probably 95% of the people out there. Probably only about 5% of the people that are tuned in here, because some of these knuckleheads, that's all they do is sit in parking lots and listen to music. I tend to do that too. You get a good song, you want to sit there and listen to it. The reason we need to know that is because if you sit with a vehicle parked for a long period of time, we don't want it to drain the battery, so you can't start the car. So we'd have to add a second battery. And once again, if you're putting a very large system in, you'd also have to add an additional battery. But I don't think we're going to need to worry about that with your vehicle. So that really gives us an idea of some of the questions we need to ask ourselves, when you're designing a system. What's going to fit? How am I going to listen to it? What am I going to use to listen to it? What environment? What type of sound do I want? So I think you have really pretty much answered all the questions that I have as far as what we need to do to your system. So now we need to go back and look at your car, look at the pictures I have with one of the gentlemen that it's going to be Tim Smith, guys. I don't know why I'm holding his name off. So you guys all know Tim. Tim is our head of our installation department and back, so he's going to be heading up this wonderful project. So he might get a little bit of help from Jacob and me, because I know he's got a lot going on getting ready for the SEMA show. But he and his guys do a great job back there. But we're going to bring Tim on because we're going to talk about some of the mechanical things that go along. We've got all the questions on the acoustics and the product and the placement, but now we got to talk about other issues we need to consider when doing an audio system. So Abigail, I want to thank you so much for coming out and joining us tonight. And giving us your car to experiment with.
Oh, I'm excited. Thank you for having me.
And you should be. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and it's gonna sound great. So I think we're gonna go ahead and do one last thing. I'm gonna thank you guys for tuning in. We got, you know, the usual group of guys. We got Ashley there. We got Bobby. We got 25 Hertz to Life. We got, of course, we got Living Loud with Andy. Make sure you guys tune in for his show. And if you guys haven't logged on, if you're not a member of the Kicker Club yet on Facebook, please sign up. I think we're over 30,000 members, aren't we, Ernie? Yeah, I think we're over 30,000 members. So once again, if you guys need help, have questions, that's another really good source to tune into. You know, listen to Andy's show. He's got a call in where you can like type in and ask questions as well. And of course, support at kicker.com. And once again, with the Kicker Club, there's just a lot of really good people to give a lot of really good advice. So Abigail, I'm going to turn you loose. It's been a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see your face when you get to hear what we're actually going to do to your vehicle. So don't worry, it's in good hands. Tim and the guys do nothing but the best work, and they will take care of it. So I appreciate you coming out and having some fun. And by the way, how was dinner?
Delicious.
What'd you have?
I had some steak.
From?
Texas Roadhouse.
Yep, you guys probably guessed that. That's kind of a running joke with the show that we do Texas Roadhouse. What, 90% of the time? Yeah, probably 90% of the time.
I might have to come out more often.
Yeah, you're welcome. We can always use the help. So, cool. Well, thanks for joining us. Ernie, I'm not sure if you want to go ahead and run a commercial or you just want to bring our next guest out. We can do either. We're going to run a commercial. So, guys, thanks for tuning in. Once again, hit like and subscribe and hang on with our next special guest, Tim Smith. And Tim and I are going to go over the nuts and bolts. And remember, if you guys want to enter the contest to win, you have about 5 more minutes before we cut it off. So we'll see you right after this commercial. And we're back. And I know the guy next to me doesn't need any introduction, but in case you don't know, this is Tim Smith. Tim is head of our installation department and the master of all things mechanical and audio in the back. So you and your guys do such a good job back there. I know you're really busy with SEMA projects, so thanks for taking time out of your schedule and joining us for this little discussion on how to design systems. So
no problem at all.
What do you think? You got some ideas?
Oh yeah.
All right.
There's always a couple floating around in there.
Yep, so I'm going to have Ernie go ahead and bring up some pictures. I took Abigail's car earlier. So, Ernie, thanks, Abigail. Appreciate it. Have a good night. Drive safe. Don't drive like we do. So, here we got the back of her car, which, you know, typical Toyota. You know, they've got the speaker mounted on the bottom. So, that's one location we have for a speaker. Now, some of the cars actually have speakers in the rear deck. Mm-hmm. And that is something we can actually consider, you know, doing subwoofers, you know, firing them up through the rear deck if we're going to do an infinite baffle. But since she likes a lot of bass, we're probably looking at a sealed or ported enclosure, don't you think?
Yeah. I really like in the passenger cars that have rear speaker locations in the back doors. I like doing an ABS plate up underneath that package tray and putting the amplifiers up there.
Absolutely.
So that keeps them out of the way of all the stuff rolling around in the back.
And when you see the pictures of her trunk, we'll know why we're going to say that. Because, yes, she does like her golf clubs. Now, that's something else we need to talk about when we get to that. Hopefully, I'll remember it. But this is the back door location. We can easily put a speaker. And since this is a 2019 Toyota, I believe there is 6.5 or 6 3/4 round.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, and if you guys are going to design your own systems for your own vehicles, do a lot of research. I mean, you know, get online and look up what speaker sizes you have in the vehicle. And also, look at some of the forums. There's Toyota forums, there's, Ford forums, there's, Dodge, Chevy forums. You got a lot of guys out there that have a lot of good input and a lot of good pictures. So don't just go to one website and look at one thing, because there's a lot of different options out there. But just remember, a lot of these vehicles, such as the Toyotas, they require a special adapter. So if you're going to mount speakers in this vehicle, you're probably going to have some type of adapter, and they're available online. There's a lot of places. Metro sells them. I know, Crutchfield sells them. Taco Tunes, since this is a Toyota, this guy's over there, they make a lot of stuff for Toyota vehicles. So another great place we can get, speaker options. So that speaker's kind of low in the door, which is okay. We're not really worried about, sound placement for the back for just a little bit of rear fill.
Yeah.
So what do you think? We think we ought to replace these or just leave them stock and leave them connected to the deck?
Well, she said she wasn't too worried about rear seat passengers because they typically don't exist.
Yeah.
There aren't a lot of them. So I think probably just leave them stock for the time being.
And not use
them
a
off the
portion of
deck
the budget.
power, and then you can focus on using your amplifier power on your front stage.
Yep, I definitely agree. Especially I like using the 5 channels and turning them into 3 channels.
Yep.
So that is another option. So, all right, moving on to the next picture, Dr. Ernie, and your massive little keyboard back there. So this is going to be the front door. Kind of looks like the back door, doesn't it?
Very similar, actually.
Not a lot of difference, but you notice we do have, a little bit thicker kick panel, but still the same speaker, location. But the front speakers on this car can either be around like a 6.5, 6 3/4. You can do 5 1/4, or you can put a 6x9 in these vehicles with special adapters. So that's going to give us the ability to get some pretty decent mid bass up front. And some, some of these cars that just have really tiny speakers, but something else that's really nice about the Toyotas and these vehicles are the other locations. And this is the pillar we were talking about earlier, where if we wanted to do a component set, and we may decide to do that, it's entirely possible, we might want to put a tweeter up in this pillar. You see a lot of stock vehicles put the tweeter here because it's above your leg, it's kind of out of the way, but as long as it's somewhere up higher than the speaker down at the bottom of the door, you're going to be okay. But this is an option for another speaker, and if we do a component set, you could always put the 6 3/4, 6x9 down on the bottom of the door and put the tweeter up on the top of the door. The advantage for doing the tweeter up here with a component set is the crossover will now be in the door, so you don't have to run wires back through the loom back into the cab to put a tweeter elsewhere.
Yeah.
So that would be one disadvantage to try and put the tweeter in the dash with the other speakers. You've got to run another wire back through that door jamb and through that loom, and some of those are very difficult to run wires through them.
Yeah.
Some of them next to impossible. But this is what we were talking about with that being a very, very large speaker grill. That is a 2 3/4 inch speaker from the factory. It's really kind of an awful, pathetic little driver. They don't sound great, so we definitely know we can upgrade the sound quality there. But it is already set up for a 3.5 inch, so you can take the 2 3/4 inch out and drop a 3.5 inch in. But if you wanted to, I would bet without too much trouble, you could put a tweeter somewhere in this location, or maybe a smaller one over here. So that's always an option if you don't mind cutting a small hole in the vehicle. But since this is a 3.5 inch, we can put a coax in there and have a separate tweeter, so you get the 3.5 inch mid and a tweeter, and you can get good sound out of that. So that's definitely a possibility. All right, head unit. What do we know about those, Tim? She wants to keep her factory head unit. We're going to do that just to keep the budget, to a reasonable number without exceeding her wish list too much.
That means we're putting a key lock in this bad boy.
Yep, absolutely. Since we know with 2017 and up Toyotas, these radios have all-pass filters. Like I say, if you guys aren't familiar with all-pass filters, get online and search them up. What they're going to, an all-pass filter is kind of give you that 2-seat tune, but I guess that's one question I didn't ask Abigail. I probably should have. She really worried about, just the imaging for herself or herself and a passenger. I mean, most people, who cares about the passenger? They can hear it. It sounds good enough for them. But
yeah, I was going to say, 9 times out of 10, or like you said, 95% of people, they're listening to their stereo while they're driving, so it's primarily them. If they're going to and work and back, they're not, driving people around.
So I think that's what we're going to do is we're basically going to give her a 1-seat tune. We're going to eliminate the all-pass filters, and that's one of the great things about the key lock is it eliminate the all-pass filters, and those radios also have built-in equalization. So rather than replacing the head unit, because it does pretty much everything she needs it to do. I mean, she can Bluetooth to it, she can listen to the radio. That doesn't have a CD player or cassette deck, but she doesn't apparently use those either. So there's no reason to replace that head unit. So by adding the key lock, we're going to flatten out that frequency response of the radio, and we're going to eliminate the all-pass filters. So when we wire that key lock in, Tim, what are some of the things we need to think about when connecting a key lock? I mean, how are we going to wire that into that factory radio?
I honestly have not done one of these guys yet. That's why I was saying, you said there's no CD slot, and I was like, you're right, there isn't one. I have not done one of those yet, so I would have to look into that a little bit more.
So I think what we've done, and we actually did Bart's vehicle, our product development director, he's got I think he had a 2017 Toyota Camry. But anyway, it's all powered off the head unit. So basically, we're just going to take the speaker outputs off the back of the radio and feed those into the key lock. Since we're not upgrading the rear speakers, we don't need to mess with those. What we would want to do is we want to get online, do a little research, and probably type in, 2019 Toyota Camry hybrid speaker wiring. And it would tell us what wires we need to tap into behind the radio. And you probably fit that behind the radio, couldn't you, Tim?
Oh yeah, no, there's enough room in there. You can probably fit some other stuff in there if they're without all the mechanized stuff for slots for the CDs and all that stuff. Yeah, the brain on that radio probably didn't take up hardly any room
It's
at all.
probably not big, so that'll easily fit behind the dash. So we don't need to find a location for that. And then we're going to need probably a decent set of signal wires to run to the back. What do you think we need for that, Tim? Because we got to figure wires and cables into our budget as well, because it takes everything to make it work.
Oh, just a good set of our K-Series RCAs would work perfect for that.
I agree. Just a pair of 2-channel RCAs, because we're going to upgrade the front speakers and add a sub, and that you really only need 2 channels for that.
Yeah,
so
you just go into the 1 amp, and you can come right out and go to the second.
Yep, come right out of that key lock right into the whatever amplifier we decide to throw in this thing, and we are good to go. Now, power. We need to talk about getting power from the front of the vehicle to the back or wherever the battery is, and I'm pretty sure the battery's still in the front of this vehicle.
I think so. I don't know. There are a lot of Dodge vehicles been sneaking them into the trunk, but
I know,
think this one's still underneath the hood.
So we need to run decent power wire, and it's going to depend on how much power. You've been kind of listening to what we've been doing. What amp do you think we ought to do for her vehicle, knowing what she's looking for?
Myself personally, I think we were talking about this a little bit before. We had found out that it was about a 100 amp alternator from the factory.
Yeah, which is surprising from that little vehicle.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought too. But 100 amp alternator, that's pretty decent output for a hybrid vehicle, because a lot of times when you start getting it all electric vehicles, you're not going to get a lot of current going specifically for your 12 volt side. So myself personally, I really like the key amps for an install like this, because they don't take up a lot of room, they're very good current draw, and they have a built-in DSP that you can utilize.
Yeah, with the microphone, and
you bi-amp the front stage of this thing, and this thing's going to sound amazing.
And it really will. And if you guys have never heard one of the key 200.4s in a bi-amp mode, that's where those things really come to life. They sound great. And we could even take the output of that 204 and use that as basically a preamp and processor and drive that into, say the 660.5.
Yep, 660.5. If you wanted to do a separate for your mids and highs, you got the 364.
So
which is right there.
Yeah, we've got
364
one right here.
right there. Yeah.
So we got a lot of options. And of course, the CX amplifiers are probably going to be our go-to, because they're affordable. They're the best-selling amplifiers in the world. They're going to work great. They're dependable. I mean, you can't just say enough about them. I mean, everything that's packed into those amplifiers for the money is actually pretty darn impressive. So we're getting this narrowed down. We're going to need a key lock. We're going to need probably a key 200.4. If we do the 360, what would we want to do for a subwoofer amplifier?
Now, it just depends. How big? Was it just a pair of 10s, pair of 12s? Are we going to do custom enclosure? Are we going to do prefab enclosure?
We can do probably a lot. Now, granted, not mean to Abigail, but when we see the trunk, I don't think she's worried about custom enclosure that painted fiberglass. So rather than eating up a lot of her budget, we've got some great already built our loaded enclosures. I mean, they're built better than most people build them, even for the aftermarket. So that's still a great option, and they're going to be very rugged and durable. So we might look at adding a set of comp 10s or 12s in one of the dual enclosures back there, and then we could go with probably, what are you thinking, 800.1 amplifier?
801. If we're going to do a pair of 10s, and then myself, I like to do a 12. If we're going up to 12s, at least a 1201.
Why not? More is better.
Yes.
So
There's
we
no
knock
such
all the
thing as
paint off our
overpowering.
vehicle. So, all right. So we got a key 204, we got a 360.4, and possibly either an 800 or a 1200. And then we need to look at the enclosures, the cost of the enclosures. Because, I mean, the sky's the limit. There's no end to what we could do in this vehicle, but we want to keep within our budget for the most part. And we still got to figure, I mean, you've done enough installs. How long do you think a full install like this is going to take if you're not building an enclosure?
If I'm not building an enclosure, I mean, this is this is a full day. Starting at 8 a.m., we work 8 to 5. By 5 p.m. you should have it knocked out. Especially if it's just myself working on it, I like to take a little bit more time and do some of the other things that, some other guys might not necessarily consider, like get a little bit of sound deadening in there.
Right.
If I've got a little bit, take the time, maybe knock out some of the outside noise so it makes the inside noise that we're about to create sound that much better.
I agree completely. And if you got the door panel off doing the speaker, it's really no extra work.
Yeah, I was going to say it's just a couple extra minutes.
Yep.
There's a little bit of added cost with it, but in the long run, I think it works great.
Yeah, it's well worth it. So since we start, checking off some of the boxes here, what do you think labor on, just replacing the front speakers and adding the amplifiers? You're going to have to build a small amp rack.
It's funny. I get asked this all the time. Because I never actually worked in a car audio store.
You just started right with a good stuff.
I started, in not necessarily manufacturing, but I went.
Go, collect $200.
Yeah, something like that, I guess. Was in the right place at the right time, was able to get in here, and then learned everything at this level. So when it comes to charging labor, like, I know that there are guys that are charging $60 an hour, and I know that there are guys that are charging $150 an hour.
Exactly.
And you can tell a difference in those guys' work. And it's worth it if you want. I definitely lean towards the guy who's charging a little bit more.
Yeah, and you never go for the cheapest. I mean, you wouldn't go to the cheapest dentist, would you?
No.
And what you're going to find out with these people that you're not paying them for the work they're doing when you're paying them for their knowledge and their ability.
For all the years of experience and all I screwed that up this last time. I'm going to make a mental note to not do that the next time.
Exactly. And a lot of these people that have been doing this a long time, you're paying a little bit more up front, but you're not going to be paying by the hour to redo something. Like, well, I just spent 16 hours on it. 10 of that was fixing things I screwed up, but so you're not paying for that as well.
Yeah.
So don't ever be afraid to shop around. Get some recommendations. If you're not doing it yourself. I mean, here again, if you're doing the system yourself, don't worry about labor. You're going to do it yourself. So
yeah, what I've always liked to tell people is if you're going to a store in your local area. What I like to do is I would go, when I was looking to have my first system installed and I decided I wasn't going to do it myself, I would go to the shops in that area and look to see pictures, pictures or images of the work that they've done, and then, base it on that.
Right.
And be like, okay, if these guys are doing higher end installs, then I kind of want something more like that. And
Larry Keller up here made a post that, labor alone, 800 plus from a good installer. And you're probably right. If you're looking at an 8-hour day, $100 an hour is not unreasonable.
Oh no, not at all.
And you look at some of these, high-end car builders. They're not charging you $300-400 an hour. They're charging you by the hour, but they're doing everything the way it should be and not cutting corners. And that's the worst thing. If you're paying someone X amount of money and they're cutting corners just to get it done as soon as possible to get it out the door, you're probably not going to be real happy with the install.
Yeah, no.
And if you're not happy with the install, you're not going to be happy with the performance or the sound quality as well.
Also true.
It all works together. So,
well, I've got a question for you because we haven't covered it. What do you think we ought to use for the mid and high speakers?
I'm thinking, obviously, kind of our bread and butter. I'm thinking probably a set of KS speakers.
These?
Yep. Probably, here's the thing. Since she's got a 6x9 in the door.
It is a 6x9.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, and it can go either way. In fact, the speaker itself is actually a round speaker. It's a little bit bigger than a 6 3/4.
Okay.
But The adapter plates, you can get adapter plates to put 6x9s in there without any modifications whatsoever. And I know, like I said, I just looked earlier today, Taco Tunes has got them, Metra's got them, you can get them from Crutchfield. There's a lot of different places. So you can leave it as a round speaker, but I'm all about getting some good mid-bass up front. So I want as much cone area.
I agree to step up to a 6x9.
So with that being said, so you've got a 6x9 woofer there with a component set, and you've got the tweeter. Now is when we might talk about putting that tweeter up in the pillar like we did before. Even though we got the 3.5 in the dash, or we could even go to the 2 3/4 inch, just the mid-range driver in that location in its 3.5 inch adapter. So we've got choices there too. What sounds like a more appealing idea for you? Dual tweeters, that definitely make it brighter.
Oh yeah, no, that'll definitely make it brighter on the top end. I like the idea of doing the in the sail panel. So that way, like you said, because the crossovers are obviously, that's no bigger than a bifold wallet. It's easy to get that inside the door cavity between the inner door skin and the actual door panel and secured to where it's not, there's no moisture problems.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Make sure they're not inside the door where all the water
I always have people tell me, they're like, oh, you just don't put crossovers in the doors. And I'm like, well, yeah, not where the window glass goes in and water can get on them and all that. Yeah, if you keep them outside or inside, then they should be just fine.
And now we've got the ability to just use the stock wires that are running through that loom. We can actually attach to them at the back of the radio, and then go inside the door where they would normally go the speaker, feed the crossover from there, and then split it out between the mid and the tweeter up above. So that just kind of leaves the last option is, what do we want to do in the dash? Do we want to do the 2 3/4? We don't do the 3.5. Do you want to maybe try one of each? We got that option. We know somebody at the factory that we can borrow the speakers from.
Yeah, I've probably got a couple of each of those floating around maybe back in the install bay, and we could try a couple things and just see what works out the best.
So, there's no right, no wrong. There's so many different options. It might be kind of fun to do the 2 3/4, just, a true three-way rather than a three-way with another set of tweeters. But I've done it both ways. My Dodge Journey, I had the 3.5 coax in the dash, and I had the tweeters actually on the A-pillars, not the little sail panel, but I actually had them on the A-pillars fired across, and that sounded good too.
Yep.
There's no right or wrong, sometimes just a little bit of experimentation. The thing you want to decide, though, right away is, if you're going to put the tweeters in and you cut them in, they're in there.
Oh, yeah.
Unless you're going to go out and replace those panels, which they're not really expensive, but no one wants to do that. No one wants to cut a hole in something, decide later they don't want it. So
yeah. Well, what we could do is, if we decide we just want to listen to them in that location, run the wire outside the door panel for the tweeter, and then use a little bit of that thumb gutty or molding.
Gorilla snot.
Yep, gorilla snot, whatever term they're using for it now. Yeah, double stick tape, and tape it on that. And then, that way you can aim it a little bit and see if you like that's where they're coming from.
I agree, and that'd be really easy. And the other thing, we could actually try setting it on the dash next to the dash speaker.
Yep, in that location, because that had a huge grill for a 3.5 inch speaker.
And I don't remember what's below that. There may not be enough depth, and that's the other thing we really got to consider is when you're putting speakers in anywhere, you've got to have the surface area, but you also have to have depth.
Yeah.
And there's nothing worse than been there, done that, putting speakers in a door, and you roll the window down, it gets almost all the way goes chunk, and it hits the magnet. It's like, oh, too deep.
I haven't been lucky enough to do that one yet. I think I've gotten pretty lucky in that
Guilty.
case. Yeah.
I don't even remember.
I have, in the 88 to 98 CK pickups, had to use a heat gun to reshape the AC vent, defroster vent in the dash to get enough room for the magnet for the 4x6 or a component set to drop up into that dash.
And that
location.
was very common, in those. In fact, in some of the S10s, you actually had to notch the back of the gauge cluster off the housing, under the dash. Sometimes there's a little bit of behind-the-scenes work, and that's why I encourage you guys to just look up your vehicle online. Don't watch just one video. Watch several people, different, combinations to get an idea what you're up against. And one of the other advantages for looking things up online is, every door panel goes together and comes apart differently.
Oh, yeah.
And they hide some screws and clips, and there's special things you need to do. The worst thing you can do is grab on a door panel and start yanking it and break a door panel. In fact, even if you do it right, sometimes that happens. I remember there were times when the little Christmas trees that hold the door panel on were actually stronger than the door panel themselves. So you'd end up breaking the Christmas tree mount off, or you'd actually buckle the door panel trying to get it off. So watch some videos of your vehicle, and like I say, just look and see what other people are doing and get some ideas. And that's a great way to figure out, if you don't know what size speakers fit in the vehicle, see what other people are putting in.
Yep.
Go to the forums. So you can't gauge everything by just one website, and there's a lot of cool things you can do, and might be stuff out there that people never thought of, or you might not necessarily have thought of, that really doesn't require any extra work, but it's something you wouldn't normally think of. Like with that car, 6x9s drop right in the doors, but it's not really made for them. But you have to have an adapter anyway.
Oh yeah.
Whether you're going to do a 6.5, 6 3/4, 5 1/4, or 6x9, you have to have an adapter. So why not put the biggest speaker in possible?
Of course.
For the best sound.
Yeah.
So when we get into doing this, in fact, I'm going to have to wake my computer back up here. We've been talking about figuring a way to keep the computers awake. All right, so we know we're going to need the key lock for the radio. We know we're going to need, wiring. So if we're going to do a 360.4, a key 200.4, and we do an 800 or a 1200, what do you think we need for wire?
That could be a tricky question, because it depends on how much, if you're going to run the wire through the interior of the vehicle, or if you're going to run the wire externally and bring it into the back of the vehicle from underneath. Because if I'm gonna run the wire underneath the vehicle, I'm gonna go ahead and run an aught gauge.
Right.
I'm gonna go ahead and run the big guy all the way to the back, and then distribute it from that aught gauge. Now, if you're gonna run it in the vehicle, it might be easier to do 2 4-gauge runs.
Do we need 2 4-gauge runs, or do we need one aught? I mean, obviously, there's no such thing as too big a wire.
Oh yeah, no, and that's the thing though. I would rather go on the big side and not have to worry about it than run right at that edge and be like, there's a possibility this wire could get warm if I'm really throttling on it.
Yeah, and definitely don't want any fires.
No, nobody wants a barbecue. It's unexpected barbecue is the worst thing.
I don't think I've heard that term before, but I like it.
We got to see one at LST 5 or 6 years ago, and it was unsettling because the guy had just got his stereo system finished the day before, and then he came to LST the next day, and it did not end well.
Nope, nothing ends well with fire unless you're talking steak.
Yeah, exactly.
And how was yours, by the way?
I had a salad.
See, come on, Tim. We have Texas Roadhouse, and you get the salad.
Yep, I'm trying to be littler, not bigger.
Yeah, I do that for lunch, so I figure I can splurge a little bit at night.
There you go.
All right. Ernie, would you mind pulling up the laptop one more time, or maybe not one more time, pull it up again. So now there's the little sail panel, which I don't remember how big that was. I probably should have measured it, but I'm pretty sure we can get a tweeter mounted in there.
Oh, I'm sure we could probably get one in there. Or if we decided to do it in the A-pillar, either way I think would work great.
Yeah, and then, of course, if we do the A-pillar, now we're just talking about running that wire back there. It's not that big of a deal on some vehicles. Some vehicles, it's almost impossible.
Yeah.
But I do know on these, it's not. Some of those vehicles with the Molex connectors, and there's no extra room, and there's nothing you can do other than run a separate wire, which is absolutely the worst. Do not run wires through door jambs if there's not a loom there already.
Yeah.
All right. So here's a little bit better view of that speaker, and it, like I say, they're kind of an awkward plastic speaker. And one of the videos I watched today, the guy actually pulled the speaker out of the door, and he was really, really knocking the factory speaker about how small the magnet was, and he talked about the speaker he put back. This is obviously better. It's got a much bigger magnet. And that's not necessarily true.
No, it's not always the case. They're designed specifically to run with the power that factory radio provides. So it's not always, when you upgrade the speakers, you don't necessarily always get a better sound because they require a little more juice, and that factory radio can't provide that juice.
That and the fact that, Neo's 20 times stronger than ferrite. So it can be a 20th of the size and still be as powerful. So don't judge things solely by the way they look, other than the trunk of her car. You can judge this one by the way it looks, because this is important to know.
Is that the foam that's supposed to go on top of the spare under
That
the
is
floor?
it, yes.
Okay, I was going to say, I was like, that's the part that's not supposed to be seen.
And I know she takes everything in good heart. And, you know, if you look right here, that's actually another spare tire.
Oh, well, yeah.
So she's
You know
got
what's better than one spare tire?
two.
Two spare tires.
Except for when they don't fit. So she's got a spare tire from her previous vehicle underneath and her current one. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to put her trunk back together for her correctly.
There we go.
And take out the spare tire from the other vehicle, which may or may not even fit.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
let's put the stock one back in. That's going to return some of her usable trunk space. And the other thing, by looking at this picture, if we were going to do subs firing, you know, backwards, what do we want to put on the subwoofers just to make sure the golf clubs don't take a bite out of them?
Oh, we're going to put some grills on
Probably
here. We
wanna
got to
put some
protect them
speaker
subs.
grills. And, you know, that's another option, too, we haven't really talked about, you know, the down-firing enclosures or even the powered down-firing enclosures. I mean, that's a good option, too, don't you think?
Downfiring is a great idea, depending on how much bump she wants. You know,
I
it can
agree.
work pretty well.
Well, the nice thing about, you know, with our amplifiers and our enclosures, if we do, say, an 800 CXA 801 with a single sub on it, and it's not enough, the amplifier is very capable of just paralleling another sub on it.
Yep.
So that might be something we look at too. Maybe try, you know, a single down firing 10 or 12 inch in like the TRTP, and if that's not enough, go ahead and throw a second one in. And with the passive radiator in the TRTPs, it almost gives it the output of, you know, two subs or, you know, one ported enclosure. So
Yep.
that's an option as well. But then we don't have to worry about a grill. We don't have to worry about, you know, she can throw anything she wants on top of it.
Yep.
And then we've got that great space up above to put, you know, all the amplifiers. In fact, we've probably got enough room to put that key amplifier up front too. You know,
yeah.
back behind the radio, the Key 204, since it's so
Yep.
small and doesn't get hot.
Yep. And then you're just running a set of RCA's back.
Yeah, run from that, the output of the 204 back into a 360 or a 660 or whatever. If we do the 360, then we could do powered subs. So we're just going to put some numbers to paper and see what we come up with. This will be a good excuse for you guys to tune back in, see what we finally ended up with, and the total cost for the whole system. But I don't think she's going to be, you know, too surprised or too upset. It's going to be a neat little system. This is something else I just took a picture of to see, you know, if there's the capabilities of, you know, tucking a sub back in the corner out of the way. And, you know, if you were going to do like you were talking about, building a custom fiberglass subwoofer enclosure, that is another option. There are these little cavities that tuck back behind.
Yeah. The only thing is with the length of the golf clubs going the width of the vehicle.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Then now every time she wants to go play golf, she's got to drop one of the two sides of the back seat and feed them into the passenger compartment to get them in there because she can't go the width of the car
I don't think she
anymore.
wants to do that.
Yeah, no. I'm pretty sure if we just do one up against the back seat, fire and rear, then it'll be more than enough. It should take care of it.
And the final picture I took, just so we know what the car we were working on, so the Camry LE Hybrid.
You could have at least blurred out her tag.
You know, I probably should
Jiminy
have.
Christmas, man.
I'm going to let
Just
Ernie do that in post.
throwing her business out there for the entire world to see.
Well, she's getting a new tag, and Ernie's back there about ready to wet his pants. He's laughing so hard. You can tell I do this a lot. I don't think of those things. So.
Did you screen anything?
Of course not. I just took pictures. So, too funny. So, anyway, I think we got a really good idea what we're going to do with her vehicle, and we're just going to put some, you know,
I
numbers
want to say
paper.
I saw a couple of good questions up there.
Yeah, and that was going to be next is, what do we have for questions? So I'm sure JW's back there scanning through them. I'm sure we've got...
Question for you.
Yeah. Boyd says, will we be getting the Kicker Solo X8? It's hard to say. Just keep asking for it.
Yep, I say the more you ask for it, the more likely that somebody will hear.
Yeah, we didn't think we were going to do a Solo X again, but they kept asking for it, so here
Yep,
we are.
and here we are.
And then the 18, which Irby let out of the bag.
Yep.
And then,
yep.
of course, you got the
So, I mean, at that point, that's 4 sizes. I mean,
10, 12, 15, and 18.
yep. So that's 4 sizes.
So
You know,
that is
what's
awesome.
a couple more?
Yep. All right.
We'll have to see.
What's Jason asking up there?
A Key 204 for the front mids and tweets sounds right. Do you still need to use a key lock?
Great question.
Yes.
Yes, you do.
You got to defeat those all-pass filters.
Yep, and that's the only way to do it. The Key 204 will not defeat all-pass filters. It will not defeat time alignment. It will do either one. There's no reason to run both. But yes, the key lock is going to allow the key 200.4 to do its job even better. So absolutely, you still want to use, anytime you use a factory head unit, because they all have equalization, almost all of them are coming out with some form of all-pass filters or time alignment. So yes, anytime you have a factory head unit, you're going to leave it in. You want to use a key lock to flatten that signal out. Then you can start all over from scratch. And some of those EQ curves on those factory radios are, God, they're awful. They're atrocious.
There have been some really bad ones that we've seen on the screen.
And no offense, not knocking Chrysler, but that's one of the worst ones because they use a 3.5-inch speaker in the dash. It's not a two-way. It's literally a 3.5-inch speaker. So to get high frequencies out of a 3.5-inch tweeter, you really got to crank the output on the higher bands, and they sound awful when you put a good speaker in there. I mean, it works decent for what they have, but if you're going to put a better speaker in there, you've got to address that EQ curve. It's unlistenable otherwise, and you got a Dodge Journey.
Yeah, and the wife has, when are we going to put stereo on this? I was like, I'm getting there. I'm getting
the Abigail's first, then.
She's going to give me a hard time about that.
All right, Jason. Blake, I thought the key amps could be de-equalized, etc., the factory signal, and the key lock was for really big amps. Well, yes, the key lock and the key, they both have equalization correction. The key lock has a much more accurate, much more capabilities as far as adjusting, and compensating for the equalization. But the key 204 does not correct those all-pass filters or time alignment. That's just something it can't do. But it is really cool because it does set time alignment with a microphone.
Yep.
And it sets the equalization with a microphone. Because in a vehicle, you got three forms of equalization. You got the transfer function of the vehicle. That's how it sounds inside, because every vehicle is going to sound different depending on how much glass, plastic, leather, suede, carpet they have. And the speakers all sound different. And then, of course, you've got the off-axis response of the speakers. So the key 204 will tune the equalization. The key lock will basically erase the factory equalization so you can start from scratch and the key can do a better job of the automatic tuning. So another great question. All right, JW, who else we got? 25 Hertz to Life. What is the crossover point for her system? Is that a loaded question? Which one? We talk of the crossover between the mids and the tweeters, between the woofers and the mids.
I was going to say, we got to pinpoint it a little bit more than that.
Well, and the other thing is we really can't just say right now. We can say, hey, this is exactly where we're going to set it at, because it's going to depend on the equipment and what it sounds like and how it interacts with the vehicle. So I usually tell people start around 80 hertz, high pass and low pass between the mid-range and the subwoofer, and you can always go up or down from there.
Yep.
And a general rule of thumb is, somewhere around 5K, at least 12 dB, if not 24 dB per octave between the mid and the tweeter. Mm-hmm. But remember, with the amplifiers, with the adjustable crossovers, you can adjust that, but if you're using the crossovers that come with the components, you're pretty much locked into that frequency unless you've got a really high-end set of components that you can change the crossover frequency. And I've seen them where you can actually change, a chip inside or a resistor bank and change the crossover point. But those are few and far between anymore. Yep. If you really want to change that crossover point, you do it actively. And if we do the key 204 in the biamp mode, if we use the key 204 between the tweeters and the 6x9s or the 6.5s or 6 3/4, whatever we put in there, it's going to automatically set the crossover at 3.2K high pass and low pass at 24 dB per octave. But when we hook it up and it hears a larger speaker in the dash, like that 3.5, it's going to change it to 320 hertz. So there really is no one answer for that question. No. So it's either going to be 3.2K, 320 hertz, and of course the speakers, the doors are going 640 and down, and then somewhere around 70 to 90 or so with the subwoofer. So it's gonna wind up somewhere within those ranges. And we really have a hybrid system at that point. We got an active crossover and a passive, so we're doing both.
Yep. It just boggles my mind to see you just rattle off hertz and all this stuff. That's why I could never do the training. That's why they keep me in the back and I keep me busy with my hands.
That's why I have no life. It's numbers are one of those things, like math. I used to get in trouble, doing math and algebra because I'd look at the problem and I'd write the answer down. Yeah. Because I knew the process and you cheated. It's like, no, you take this number and this number, you do this to it, it's going to give you that number. Like, you didn't show your work.
Yeah,
so
No, maths is hard.
But
I'll let
remembering
you
names,
do it.
I can't remember names for the life of me. So, you know, you have it some areas, some you don't. And, you know, names and what I'm supposed to do and what I'm supposed to pick up at the grocery store. I go for one thing and I come back with 10 things except for what I went for.
Except for, yep. Oh, yeah. So, been there, done that.
So just for some reason, specifications are one of those things that I know because I get asked a lot. So.
Yeah. You want to take that one?
What's Anson K. Adams says, what's the difference in a kiss load forward versus a key lock? Very good question. So the key lock is basically a smart line output converter. So it's going to take anywhere from 40 volts to 400 watts into the key lock. It's going to process the signal. It's going to take out the all pass filters, the time alignment, and it's going to flatten out the frequency response and feed up to a 9-volt output. Mm-hmm. So the KISS loads are nothing but a load resistor. They do not change the voltage. So you send 400 watts into a KISS load 2, because it's rated at 400 per channel, you're going to get 40 volts on the output. It does not
step down.
Yeah, step the voltage down at all. What it does do is it steps the current down, the power. So all the KISS load is going to do, it's going to pull the power out of that system, but it's going to give a load to the radio. Now, the key lock has a 60 ohm load built into it, but it only works in the low voltage, like an RCA input side.
Yep.
It does not work on the speaker side because we don't have those huge resistors like we do in the KISS loads. So the KISS load has a 25 ohm load, which we need for some of the newer vehicles, some of the smart radios that require that lower impedance. So that's why you still might need to use a KISS load along with a key lock in some systems. So we keep adding those little pieces in there, and that's things you find out by experience and by asking around. It's like, hey, what did you do? Did it work, or what didn't work, or what did you do to combat that? But another excellent question, man. You guys are paying attention. I love it.
I was gonna say, because a number of the Mopar vehicles back in the day, you had to run that KISS load in there, so that factory, if you wanted to keep that factory radio,
you still do.
Yeah. Okay.
And they started out with the 60 ohm, which was great, and then they got up to about 2019 with the Hellcats and the Demons, and then you had to go to that 25 ohm load.
Yep.
Because no longer were they just looking for load on the radio. They were now checking the signal. Every single speaker wire, they would check short to 12 volts, short to ground, short to every other wire. They would also check the AC impedance and the DC resistance on every wire every time the radio came out of sleep mode, which means every time you change the source, every time you change the station, every time you hit play, pause, it would do that every single time on every wire. What they're doing is they're looking to see if any speakers are blown in the vehicle, and by checking the parameters they do, they can tell if the tweeter's blown in a coax.
Yep.
And the reason they do that is because if you have a Class D amplifier and you don't have a good heat sink on it, if you don't have a load on it, that amplifier is going to burn itself up, and now you got a warranty claim.
Yep.
Because they're making these things as small, as light, as cheap as they can, so they're going to cut that heat sink down, and the speakers are also going to be part of the electronic circuit.
Yep.
So the impedance of the speaker is part of the output stage of the amplifier that the impedance the speaker's calculated in. So if you take that out, you're going to get noise, you're going to get system noise, you're going to get hiss, you're going to get just distortion.
Yep.
So you've got to have the load on some of those vehicles. So a very good question. So thanks for those. You guys actually ask a really good question. 25 Hertz Life asks again, KS speakers have no neo magnets. Not necessarily true. The tweeters do.
Yeah, the tweeters do. But I think he's just asking if they in general do, and it's no, they're still an iron ferrite.
Yep. So when you get into the QSC speakers, those had, the QSC, which are the coax, those had neo magnets.
Yep.
But the QSS were still the ferrite magnets. So neo is an odd commodity right now. It's gotten really expensive and kind of hard to get a hold of with all these wind turbines that use neo magnets. So
yep.
It's hard to get it in quantity. So our engineers decided that, hey, the cost difference, because it's more expensive and the availability, we didn't want to hold up production. So there's very few times which you really don't have room to get a KS speaker in a stock location. These things are so shallow.
Yeah.
I was
going to say they're constantly working on taking a little bit out here, a little bit out here, still having the same performance, but making it fit more applications.
Andy, what do you got to say there, Andy? What's Andy asking?
How does the Key 200.4 Key 100? How does the Key 200.4 figure out the speaker size if it is being used as a pre-out to the 360.4?
It uses the microphone.
I was going to say, because you literally just hook up the outputs to the inputs of
Yep,
the
take the speaker
360.4, and then still we'll go ahead and run it through its sweep, just as long as the only speakers that are playing are the ones that are connected to that amplifier and none of the other speakers in the vehicle, then it'll do the exact same thing that it would if it was just hooked up to the Key 204.
Yeah, because the microphone doesn't know that there's another amplifier in the stage. It's
Nope.
just listening to what's coming out.
Yep.
So, and what I try to do, the personal way I like to do it when doing that is I shut all the crossovers off in the 204 and do all the crossover and all the adjustments on the 360 or 660 if you're doing the 5-channel.
Yep.
So just let the key, play to its heart content and then figure it out afterwards.
Yep.
Frank Priest asks, I have two L7 8Ts on 800 watts in a 2.4 cubic foot ported box. I bet the thing slams. I want to go to 8 L7s. Can I still use my box? Am I asking that?
Oh, 8 L7S.
Oh.
He has the L7T. He wants to go to the L7S.
I don't see why not, do you?
I would just have to double check on what the box recommendations are, but as long as you have the depth inside the enclosure, it should be just fine.
And that's the key. Now, obviously, the L7S are going to handle more power and have more output overall, but the L7Ts are pretty dang impressive.
Yeah, they really are.
I mean,
they really are.
You got 400 watts in each one, and the L7S, they're going to handle a little bit more power than that, have a little bit more output. But is it enough to justify the cost difference, and basically buying two new speakers? If the L7T sound good, it's not going to be a day and night difference. I wish I could tell you that you'd just, oh my God, I can't believe, it's just unbelievable. It's not, it's going to like, oh yeah, hey, it's better. But that's what you get into when you start, doubling your, speakers or power. You get that much more difference. It's 3 dB, which is a very small amount overall by doubling your power. What's Todd asking?
How do you adjust the key lock output to your amp? What tool would you use?
A screwdriver.
Yeah, it's just a little flat tip.
So the key lock has an input gain and it has an output gain, or an output setting, not an output gain.
Yep.
So what I normally do is you have to go through the proper setup with the key lock. You have to set that thing up exactly right. You have to follow the manual step by step. You're going to go through, first of all, you're going to go through a gain match track, which you have to play. You have to make sure you do not clip the input coming into the key lock, because if you clip the input coming into a key lock, it's not going to do the setup properly. It will fail. DSPs cannot, they don't know what to do with a clipped or DC signal. So you have to set the gain properly. Then what I like to do is I like to start with the gain on the amp all the way down.
Oh, yeah.
Put an oscilloscope on the output of the final amplifier, whatever's connected to the key lock. Start turning the output of the key lock up till you see clipping on the amplifier, and just ignore the gain on the amp. Because it's going to be much cleaner. The more signal you run into the amplifier, the less hard it has to work, the less distortion and noise it amplifies. So always run as much signal into your amplifier cleanly as you can. The last resort is to turn up the gain on the amplifier. But with 9 volts out on the key lock, you probably shouldn't need to ever turn the gain up on the amplifier.
I haven't had many applications where we've had to do that, so.
Cool. So flat blade screwdriver is the tool.
Or
sorry, Todd, just being a
or
smart
the
ass.
amp tool off of our website, which is like a Swiss Army knife with Allens for the different, was it the 3mm, 4mm, 5mm, depending on which distribution block or amplifier you have.
It's got a small Phillips, it's got a flat blade, it's got a 2.5, a 3, 4, and a 5mm Allen wrench.
Oh yeah,
and
all the fun stuff.
They're nice little tools, and it looks like a little Swiss Army knife. It's the Swiss Army, kicker knife kind of thing. So
it's all the kicker stuff.
All right, so SDDK Enclosures asks, what's the best woofer in the kicker lineup for infinite baffle? Do you have an opinion on that? Because it is just opinion.
I honestly can't remember the last time I've done an infinite baffle setup.
I like them.
I know you do. I know you do. You talk passionately about how much you're the best sounding system you ever did.
Not the loudest.
Not the loudest, but the best sounding.
So that's the key. You're looking for all in out sound quality, or you're looking for, output. If you're looking for, output, obviously the woofer that's going to have the most travel, but any of the woofers will work reasonably well, pretty darn good infinite baffle. There really isn't one that's better than the others. Now, we do have a woofer that's specifically designed for infinite baffle. That's going to be the KMF, yes. The KMF, the F stands for free air, where the KM is just kicker marine. So if you're looking for a very specific infinite baffle speaker, the KMF10 or the KMF12. Now, the difference being the F series has a stronger mechanical suspension. So if you're going to use any woofer in an infinite baffle, since there is no enclosure to control the cone movement, you have to have a subsonic filter or an infrasonic filter, which is a high-pass filter at a low frequency to take the really low bass out of it because you'll physically tear the speaker apart.
Oh yeah, it'll just wear itself out.
So, you know, I've used our solos for infinite baffle. I've used comps. I've used L7T. I mean, they all sound really good. They do a great job.
Yeah, if you do your homework and you set it up right, you pretty much could use just about any of the subs in our line.
And just remember, surface area wins.
Oh,
you know, an
every
8-inch
time.
free air, it's just not going to do a lot. But you know, if you've got an 8-inch opening, you can easily fire a 12-inch, L7T through that 8-inch opening. Just make an adapter plate so the cone and surround don't hit. But it's not going to constrict the output of the speaker. I mean, generally speaking, you need a third of the cone area as an opening before it will load down the front of the driver. So, as you know, for a wild example, if you have 3 12-inch woofers, like even round, you got 3 round 12-inch woofers, and you want to fire them through a single hole, as long as that hole is at least 12 inches or the same area, they're not going to be loaded enough to affect the sound.
Yep.
So, great question. Had nothing to do with the setup, but a great question. Anybody else? And we're getting about 8:44, about time to probably do the last couple things and give some stuff away. I think some guys are probably getting excited for that.
Oh, yeah.
So we got one more question, JW. All right. The Bedrock Boy.
Does Kicker have any sound quality subs?
Every one of them.
Every one of them, set up right, will sound great in a sound quality system.
Yeah, in fact, you look back to, iASCA, even back in the day when we introduced the first Solo X18s. Who won world champion sound quality for iASCA and USAC that year?
That'd be Mr. Gary Biggs.
With a pair of 18s in the back.
Yep.
So that's one of the things we do here at Kicker. The owner, Steve, listens to everything. You don't see it until he's happy with the sound quality. I wish people could, hear, that don't believe that we make good sounding speakers. Hear one of the vehicles we got set up, just set up properly. I'm not talking throwing millions of dollars at it. Just set them up right with a good source. We make great sounding speakers. We always have. Just sometimes people, you get the haters that hate.
Yeah. I mean, Steve prides himself because he's a musician. And he's a great musician and has been for years. Even if it's a subwoofer all the way up to he wants everything to reproduce music as best and cleanly as it can.
I mean, even the ST series, which
the STs sound phenomenal.
The guys that typically use those don't care what it sounds like, do you guys? You just want it loud.
Yeah.
They still sound good.
Oh yeah, no, the Bronco is extremely musical,
and
it
Drew's
sounds phenomenal.
Drew's wagon.
Yeah, Drew's wagon sounds great too.
Crazy. But yeah, we absolutely do make sound quality speakers. Now, is it the sound that everybody loves? everybody's got their own opinion. There is no right or wrong. So
Yep.
all I can do is encourage you guys to give it a shot. But put the speakers in the right enclosures, the right crossover, right power, and the right location of the vehicle, and you're not going to go wrong with anything.
Can't go wrong.
That's all there is to it. All right. I think we're going to end the questions. We're not doing too bad on time. I drug it out too far. But we got to do the usual array of fun stuff. You want to hang out for this, Tim? Or you?
Sure.
All right.
Stick around.
So I'm going to go back to my file here, and I'm going to. What do you want to start with? Should we do installs or fails? What do you want to do first?
Oh, let's just do installs.
All right. Well, I've kind of narrowed this down to one person. I actually heard from this gentleman just yesterday. I haven't talked to him for quite a while. It's my good friend Bryce. He's up in Canada. He owns a company called Last Resort Fabrications, and he does some really, really amazing work up north. Up north, eh? Wow. So here's some cool stuff that he's doing.
That would be a Dodge sail
panel,
wouldn't it?
Isn't that neat?
Yeah.
I saw that. It's like, that is really a cool idea. Now I'm jealous. Now, well, of course, you got a journey too.
That just seems like, I think, is that a journey that he's doing it in?
It doesn't matter. They've got the same badge.
Okay, all right. I was thinking more like along the lines of our old Dodge Dually.
Or three, yeah, and the
our
truck.
Old Ram.
And this is actually, funny you mentioned that. You know the trucks better than I do. Because it is a truck. So This is something else that he sent. It's just really a neat looking subwoofer enclosure. And that is an old school L7.
I was getting ready to say
that is one of the originals.
Really?
Yep. And just the way he did the lighting, I actually got a couple pictures of this enclosure he did. This is just Bryce does some absolutely gorgeous work up there. There's another little picture. I love the two-tone, and like I say, the LED trim around here, the little recess so you don't see all the mounting screws. And there's another picture of the enclosure. Here's something else that's kind of cool that he did. Made his own grills for the back doors.
Well, of course.
I mean, those factory grills, they are pretty much hideous.
Oh, well, yeah.
So just, pressed, wire mesh. So great use of some creativity. And there's the picture I was looking for. That's another side, profile of that enclosure under the seat. I love the two-tone, especially with the teal LED, strip through there. I think that's about a 1/4 inch.
No, that's a beautiful install.
Could be half. But very nice, clean work, Bryce. I really like what you do, and it was good talking to you again yesterday while I was sitting in the airport. Here's another little bar that he did in a vehicle overhead with some of our power sports speakers. Nice contrast between the blue LEDs and the yellow trim ring on the front. And, the edge lighting, it's got the nice little acrylic sign hanging down in front of the woofers under the seat on this vehicle. So great work. Thank you again, Bryce, for sending these to me, and thanks for being a kicker dealer up north. I mean, you've always done a good job, and I know he worked for one of our retailers up there, and when they kind of went the other direction, like south, like down and out, he started his own shop, and he's had some issues with some thievery, and it's actually got a video of a guy breaking into his shop while he was in the shop.
Oh, well, that's always a fun game.
Yeah, kind of scary stuff. But glad you're doing well, Bryce, and thanks for sending those pictures. Now we're going to go to the other fun topic. We got
the other side of the spectrum?
Yeah. And once again, if these are your installs, guys, I apologize. This is all for fun. Just, if you have questions or need some help, call our tech guys. It's support@kicker.com. And that didn't open for some reason. So I don't know why it's doing this. There it is. All right, bring it up, Ernie. How about that for a center channel, Tim? What is that,
Wow.
Logitech?
Yeah, I was going to say, I haven't seen a Logitech center channel in a car in a while.
It's scary that it might actually not even sound bad. Yeah, generally, but the wires, probably, it's a partial
It's
fail.
frowned upon.
Yeah, there you go. It's frowned upon, not, absolutely. So, this is really frowned upon. That's actually a pretty small picture. See if I can. That's some quality wood there. That is your basic. That's not even. Yeah, that's actually not even entertainment quality. That's like chipboard.
I was going to say, I was like, that looks like some of that furniture you buy from Walmart.
Yeah, I'm not even sure what the purpose is. I don't know if the magnets would, if he didn't want to cut the metal out of the rear deck or couldn't, but.
Well, I mean, unless those are extremely shallow speakers, I think he probably still had to cut out some of that rear package.
Yeah, I don't know, but just generally not the best of installation practices there. Yeah, there's two pictures with this one. How about that for getting sound to your tweeter?
I am not even 100% sure what I'm looking at, John.
So let's go to the next picture. Now do you know what you're looking at?
Yes, we're in the fails category.
Yes, we definitely are. So the wire going through the door jamb, and you can see it's been very pinched several times. But I'm not exactly sure, obviously, since we didn't do this install, is he just powering the tweeter? Is he biamping the tweeter alone? Or is he powering the mid and the tweeter off the tensile leads for the tweeter?
Wow.
Because technically you can do that.
I feel like I'm looking at something from that Inception movie. It's like, it's just a question wrapped in a riddle, which is, I don't even know. I can't even describe what I'm looking at.
And when you put that door panel in, you think it's going to rattle?
Well, I mean, he's got a nice panel tool laying on the floor there underneath that sill plate.
Yeah, that looks like maybe a screwdriver. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something
rattle
else
just a
I
touch.
just now noticed, look at the mounting of the speaker itself.
I was going to say, is it spaced off of
Yes, it
the
is.
steel of the door panel?
Oh, I'm sorry I'm laughing, but sometimes you just have to. All right, so that concludes.
So, I mean, would that be an infinite baffle?
Yeah, that would be no baffle.
Oh, yeah.
That's an infinite no baffle, or as you would say, a hard no.
The quarter baffle? Or the 4 points baffle?
Yeah, I imagine that thing has no frequency response. Here, okay, let's Give them benefit of the doubt. If that speaker's blown and the tweeter's the only thing that works, it doesn't matter.
It's a very good point.
At that point, it's just holding the tweeter in place.
Yeah, exactly.
Too funny. All right, so that would be the fails for the night. I think we'll do our usual 3 questions, and then we're going to get around to handing out some stuff, and I'm going to make you help me do that.
All right.
Since normally you're on the back side of the camera. It's fun having you out here on this side of the camera.
Oh, it's been a minute.
So, and it'll happen again, I'm sure. All right. First question that we got sent to us that the guys picked for me. I'm trying to decide between 2 different subwoofers. I'm looking at a Comp R or an L7R subwoofer, and I'm going to have a box built for it. I just want enough bump to sound good in my car. They're close to the same price, so which would be better for him?
Bang for the buck, L7R. Just because more surface area. What is it? What have we done the math on that?
It's about 23%.
23% more surface area, and surface area is going to be better every time.
Yeah, especially if they're mounted side by side to get better mutual coupling. But
Yep.
neither one's a bad choice.
Nope.
Now, are you going to hear
so.
a day and night difference between them? Probably not. But I really like the L7s.
Yeah.
I mean, they just more surface area. They've got a cool look to them. So, I'm going to say you're going to like the L7Rs better. No.
Oh yeah.
Second question. I have a KXMA 905. That's one of our marine amplifiers.
Yep.
On my boat, and it's mounted in one of the storage compartments. I can almost see where this one's going. With my life jackets, so it's padded and safe. After listening for a few hours, it's been turning off for a few minutes, and it comes back on in place for about 15 minutes. Then it turns off for a few minutes. And over. Any idea what's going on? That's a pretty easy one there, Tim.
Voltage.
Thermal.
Oh, is it overheating too?
Yep,
Yeah.
yeah, he's got a thermal issue going on. So that's why it's shutting off for about 15 minutes. It's cooling down. So, and since it's all, sandwiched in that storage compartment, so I would say move that amplifier out of the storage compartment, or in extreme situations, put a fan in there of some kind.
Yeah. Or you could just put a couple vent hole on either side of the compartment to where some type of air movement can escape out of that. Especially, as he says, is that the one with the life jackets in it?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah. So you're just choking up
smothered.
even more of that, yeah.
And, hey, the fact it runs for a few hours, that's still not bad.
No, I was going to say, I was like, he's getting a pretty good run out of it.
All right. So this guy says, I just bought a blank amplifier on eBay for a steal. We'll just call it a WX 10001.
Oh,
we don't know what brand, yeah. But I read somewhere that I have to wire my subwoofers a certain way so that the amp needs its proper value. It says I need dual voice coil subs. The 4 subs I have are single coil. Is there any way I could get them to work, or do I need to buy new subs?
That's the 10K. That's our old 10K, the WX.
Yes, it is.
So yeah, with single voice coil, I don't believe that you can.
Unfortunately, no.
Yeah, no,
So-
you have to have a dual voice coil setup because it's a push-pull configuration.
If he is talking about our WX 10001, the original Warhorse amplifier, it was specifically made for dual voice coil speakers. It had one channel that pushed and one that pulled, so you had to have dual voice coil speakers, and I'm still going to admit that the first time I wired them up in the Warhorse fan that we did, I wired them up wrong. Poof. Yeah, it's just why don't these sound right? It's just you have to have
Because they were
push,
fighting
pull.
each other.
Amp 1 goes to coil 1, amp 2 goes to coil 2, or output 1 goes to coil 1, and output 2 goes to coil 2. So that is, if it is, our WX 10001.
That's the model number.
Yep.
I don't know of any other WX 10001.
Now, could he mount them isobaric? No.
No.
Stretch on that one. So, all right. So, guys, thanks for the questions. Thanks for tuning in tonight. I think it's time to give some things away. Bill, are you ready to give stuff away? Yep. And the crowd goes wild. I think he said yep.
Yep, he did.
All right. Third prize winner, the second runner-up, I always like that, second runner-up, is going to be, drum roll please, Tim, who's going to win that?
Winner number 3 is Philip H. from right here in Oklahoma.
Nice. Well, Philip, if you're close out here, if you're here between 8 and 5 during the day, come on out and come see the museum. So come pick up your prize, which is your tumbler, your koozie, and your T-shirt. So Runner-up to the grand prize, or the second prize winner for tonight, is going to be Mark P. from Texas. Well, Texas still isn't that far.
I was going to say, that's a pretty decent drive.
Yep, Mark P., if you're Dallas is only 3.5 hours away. We know that trip
The
well,
way
don't we?
you drive,
It's 4 hours away.
there you go.
The way I fly.
Do PC, yeah. Speed safely.
Mark, congratulations. You guys watch for an email from Bill Frog. He's going to ask for your name, your address, your shirt size, and your phone number. So make sure you get back to him as soon as possible so he can get that information to Sandy, and Sandy can send out all those cool prizes. But speaking of cool prizes, the winner of the Bullfrog, the BF 100, is going to be Tim. Drum roll, please.
Anthony in from Massachusetts. That's a long haul.
I was going to say that's probably two-day drive.
Yeah,
Easy.
that'll be in the mailbox soon.
Yeah. Well, as long as he responds to Bill's emails. You
There
guys
you go.
watch for the email from Bill. As always, thank you guys for all your support. Don't forget to tune in for Living Loud with Andy and sign up for Kicker Club if you haven't. It's a great place to show off your work. And, you know, I wish I could show all the pictures we get all the time, you know, up here on the, you know, the cool installs. And there just isn't enough time in the day to show everybody's. But keep sending them, guys. You never know. We want grab yours and put them on the air. And send us some fails, too. We'll take anything. You know, we're all out here to learn and have some fun. So tune in 2 weeks. We're going to have another great show for you guys. That'll be 7:30 Central Time right here on the Kicker YouTube and Facebook channel. Coming to you live from Stillwater, Oklahoma, the world headquarters of none other than who?
Kicker Performance Audio.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Thanks for your support, and we will see you guys in 2 weeks. Take care and good night.